very much for 1K. So this is the Q&A video that I posted about before. I asked if you guys had any questions for me, and you delivered. There were a lot of questions under that post, which I'm very grateful for. And I am also very grateful for reaching this milestone. Thank you very much. So I'll be drawing along as well as answering all your questions at the same time. So, well, let's get right into it. Also, just a heads up, sorry if the audio is weird, I had some funky issues with the mic. So I'm gonna split this between art-related questions and MISC/other questions, which aren't really to do with it, but I thought it would be fun to answer them anyway. Okay, so starting off with the art-related questions, these questions aren't in any particular order, by the way, but question number 1. Which is your favorite part of the drawing process, and which is your least favorite? So my favorite part is definitely line art or the cleaner sketch phase of a drawing. Just when I'm just defining the features, especially of the face, I think those are my favorite bits. That, along with adding the little extra rendering bits right at the end of a drawing, I really enjoy that. You know, like the sparkles or the little highlights in the hair? I think it really gives the character, well, more character, and I really enjoy those bits. For my least favorite, I'd say flat coloring and figuring out the shading, because for a while I've been flat coloring manually right up until I recently discovered how to do it very efficiently with CSP. But that and figuring out how I want the lighting to look like, it's notoriously been really difficult for me, so I haven't really been enjoying it as much. Okay, next question. If you could only use 3 colors for all of your art forever, which would you choose? Honestly, I think I'd go with pink, orange, or cyan, just because those colors would be pretty much all the colors I need to draw Ika. But I could swap out one of those for like a particular shade of green that'll pop up on the screen as well. But yeah, as long as I can color in Ikazuki, I'm honestly pretty fine with most color combinations, since I don't really have a favorite color. It sort of changes with the mood or like whichever character I'm hyperfixating on. And currently it's Ika, so cyan, orange, pink, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's what I think that if you ask me right now, which you are, these are the only colors I could live with in my artwork. Okay, next question. What were your influences? Those that might have inspired you for your art and art style. So, in terms of influences, it's really hard to pin down because I went through a lot of phases and art style changes as I've been growing with my artwork. So I discovered more artists and different artists that I liked as I grew up. I basically whipped back from semi-realism all the way to hard anime, and now my style is more anime now, but it has a little bit of my own twist to it. So I've really sort of gone back and forth. I'd say one of my very early inspirations was Hyannanatsu, back when she still posted speed paints. Later on, my more semi-realism phase, etcetera.art. Right now, and all the way back in the day, bhedoods, or just B, I really like their work a lot. They still do doodles and post on their story as well. I really recommend checking them out. I have all of them linked below. And this other artist that draws My Little Pony all the time, I can't think of their name now. Editing Pumpkin will put in their name, but I really love those as well. I don't necessarily have a set in stone inspiration because everyone kind of inspires me in different ways, and I sort of nitpick little bits from each of them. So yeah, for now, these are just the names I've named, but there's been countless artists as well during my journey that have really inspired me and influenced the way that I've drawn. And the next question is quite similar to the last question. It is, what artist's work would you say you want your art to look like the most? Like I've said, this is sort of very similar and basically just adds to the last question, but I don't really want my art to look like anyone else's but my own, just because I have so many inspirations and places I've picked from, and I just can't narrow it back down to just one artist or one style that I want to stick to. Like I said, I've had a lot of inspirations over the years, and I just basically nitpick and pick out little bits of them that I like and sort of Frankenstein it into my own style. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then I sort of just move on. For example, when I was in a bit of a Hades phase, I've never played the game, but I was really into the art, and I really loved how they made the darkest shadows really black. So I did that for a while in my art, and I still do from time to time, but just less so. But it's still something that I consider. It's stuff like that, you know, like little bits, little things from other artists that I kind of put into my own art, so it becomes my own. So in that way, I'm very happy for my art to look exactly as if it was my own, as if it was my own creation, which it is. But obviously, when you create something, it's sort of a mix of all the ingredients that you put in. I guess that's how I'd explain it. But anyway, next question, sort of art related. It is, they said, I was wondering if you ever do any writing for your OCs, anything from small things like summarizing their backstories to full stories of fan fiction. As somebody who has their OCs purely in writing, I'm interested to know. In terms of writing, I do a little bit. It's mostly just writing down my ideas in my victims' DMs. My victims know who they are. And it's more like, oh, what if, for example, so-and-so died, which spurs on this character's need for revenge, and they do this and this and this, that kind of thing. Rather than dedicated writing sessions or storytelling, I basically write the ideas down, and then I might draw them later, or I envision this scene in my head. I'm not much of a writer in the sense that I don't craft together coherent stories through my writing, you know, I don't think about the tone of it or anything like that. It's just the idea on paper, and then I try it out through drawing and see if it works. Just because I don't really think in words that much, even though I am a yapper, I'm not articulate in that sense. I think in scenes and images more. But that being said, I guess you could say I write a little bit for my OCs. I mean, I write a lot about the ideas, but I don't know how to explain it. I think you get what I mean. I don't have dedicated story sessions for them. Thank you for asking though. Okay, so next question is, would you ever create a webcomic? If yes, any idea what it'll be about? Now this also ties into the last question, and yes, I do want to make a webcomic. And in terms of what it'll be about, I already have an idea, where my personal OC comic is going to be set in a fantasy world, and it's going to be vertical scroll webtoon sort of style. And I've also got another isekai comic in the works with two of my lovely friends. Yeah, it's going to be obviously fantasy setting, isekai, from their original worlds into their, and Ikazuki is going to be one of the main characters of it. The main character that I chose for this isekai, just because she needed a canon, and I thought this would work really well for her. And so for the isekai comic, we've agreed that it's going to be sort of more manga style. And yeah, so far, those two are the main things in the works, but I do have a lot of ideas for different side stories or different standalone short stories, and I think I'd start publishing them sometime in the future, maybe a year from now, because I want to get sort of my foot in the door with making comics. Okay, next question. When did you start to draw? I started to draw about the time where I had enough brain power to pick up any drawing medium and put it to paper. That's when I started, honestly. But I only started taking it seriously when I think I was about maybe 10 years old. I think so. I think it was around that time, because around that time I discovered Pokemon XY and X, Y, and Z, and I saw it, and it's the first time I saw an anime style properly. And I thought that it was gorgeous, that I wanted to draw just like that, and I wish more cartoons looked like that as well. At the time, I also had a friend who drew as well, and she drew better than me, or at least I thought so. I just thought she had a really nice style, and yeah, I wanted to draw like that. I wanted to draw better than that. So it was spurred on by a little bit of competition, not in an unhealthy way. As in, like, I didn't kill myself drawing to get better than her or anything. But I really liked the way she drew, and I wanted to draw like that as well. So from around 10 years old, maybe a little older, I started to take it a lot more seriously. But before then, it was just, the kind of drawing that every kid does. But the only difference is I just kept doing it because I really like doing it. Next question, what's your average number of layers and do you organize/name them? In terms of my average number, I think it's honestly anywhere between 10 layers to 50. And I only organize them if it's for a big illustration, like the one I did for my spooky video. That illustration took about 9 hours in total, so I really planned it out from start to finish. Sort of, I winged it for quite a bit of it, but I made sure to organize my layers in a way that would make it easier for me to use them. Otherwise, if it's for illustrations that I just thought up, or for sketches or doodles, I don't really name them or organize them whatsoever. And sometimes it can get really messy, and I have to look through each and every one to figure out where I drew whatever. Next question. If your art was a food/smell, what would it be? If my art was a food, honestly this was the top one, but I think I've settled on it being there's a dish called yendafo. It's a Thai noodle dish, and it has red soup base with it can be clear noodles. You can order whatever noodles you want with it, honestly. It can be clear, egg noodles, rice noodles, and it just has like a lot of fish balls, some vegetables. It can have red pork in it as well. It's just a lot of colors, but it's a warm and vibrant all around, and the taste, it's hard to describe unless you've had it. But I think it would suit my art pretty well. As a main course dish anyway. If I was going for a dessert, honestly, I might go with like a raspberry cream-filled croissant. I don't know. Alright, next question. What do you think is the most distinctive/recognizable part of your art style? Honestly, I think my line work and the saturated bright colors that I use is the most recognizable bit of my art. I kind of pride myself on how sort of clean my line work is, or how clean my second sketch is, just because it's just the way I work. I really like working that way. And I also use a lot of saturated or bright colors because it's very pleasing to me personally. So I think those two in combination make it more recognizable. That and the fact that the noses that I use, even though it's like an anime nose, it's like a triangle kind of nose. And I actually quite like that. I think that does set my art sort of apart from other creators as well. Okay, next question. What's your favorite thing to draw? My favorite thing to draw is probably definitely faces, or Ika. I don't know if you could tell, but I draw her all the time. Especially when I'm making videos. She's just really pleasing to draw, really fun and vibrant, and I'm really happy that I created her. And for faces, I would say specifically in the 3/4 view, just because it's the easiest for me and it's just my most comfortable comfort zone ever. So yeah, faces in 3/4 view, Ika, oh yeah, and bangs. I love drawing bangs. They're really just satisfying. I know you asked for one thing, but I gave you 3, so... Next question, no one asked this outright, but someone did ask this on another video, so I thought I'd be a little clear about this here. What brushes do you use? So I'll bring up my brushes on both Krita and CSP. I'll bring those up on the screen and I'll leave them there for a couple seconds so that you can use them. I'll also have their content ID for the CSP brushes written down below in the description as well. And just another note, for my Krita brushes, I use the Krita default pack 3. So you can enable that in your manage resources settings. It should be automatically available with the desktop version of Krita. Okay, now time for the fun misc/other questions. So first one, what would you prefer? Cheese with uranium, a wooden door with ham, or a chair with pineapple? So when I heard this question, I knew straight away which one I was going for, and that is the wooden door with ham. And this is purely because I can peel off small strips of the wood to eat with the ham very slowly. So the flavor is preserved and I do not die immediately, because if you think about it, wood is an organic material. So theoretically, I won't drop just from a few strips, at least not immediately, right? So I can savor the taste and my life at the same time for a little bit. Okay, so moving on. Next question. Do you play video games? And if so, what are your top 3? So on some of my socials I have that I really enjoy visual novels, and that much is true. So this top 3 isn't necessarily in any order, but my first one that I'm gonna put there is Our Life Beginnings and Always, my bad. And that's a visual novel. It's the best one I've ever played, just because of all the freedom and how much choice you have and how organic everything feels. All the characters feel like real people, and they're all like really lovely as well. The main character is really lovable, and you don't actually have to romance him if you don't want to, which is what I really enjoy. You can just be friends with him, you can be completely disinterested in him, and the game will focus on your relationship with your family rather than your relationship with him. The DLCs are also really cheap, and they double your playtime and more, and you can get DLCs for other love interests, which are shorter than the main game, but still very much worth it. Number 2 is Baldur's Gate 3, which is, I guess, sort of on the similar spectrum of storytelling and romance. It's a really good single-player story game, strategy / tactical, I guess. I'm sure a lot of you have heard it floating around. It's an amazing game. It's the best 50 quid I've ever spent in my entire life. Hands down. It gives you the same amount of freedom as, like I said, Our Life, but obviously it's a different game. I really enjoy the freedom that you have in this kind of story game because all of your choices actually do matter and they do affect the story. Also, your companions are really likable. I love the romance section. I don't know if you could tell yet, but I'm a sucker for romance and romancing games, especially when you have choice. So yeah, I adore Baldur's Gate. Number 3 is It Takes Two. And now my enjoyment on this game is heavily dependent on the lovely individual that I played it with for the first time. You know who you are. Yeah, I love the game. It's really creative. All the levels are really fun. It's really good if you have someone that is good company. Someone that you know you'll have fun when you play with them. And this was that person that I played with. They're my self-proclaimed #1 fan and my first ever subscriber. And they just made it such a wonderful experience. So if you want to play It Takes Two, I highly recommend playing it with someone that you know you'll have a good time with. Either way, I do think it's very worth looking into. Okay, next question. Do you like anime? And if you do, what are your top 5? Not in any particular order. I also do like anime. As you can tell from my style, I think my influences were quite clear actually. So my top 5 was hard to choose, but I guess recently from the top of my head, I've thought of Summertime Rendering. Really interesting story that works really well with the amount of episodes it has. It all sort of ties in together. Dan Da Dan, which is going around the internet right now. Everyone really likes it and I'm one of those people. It hooked me in from the first episode. As dodgy as the first episode kind of was, it does get more tame later on. And overall the anime is really fun, really lively, and I think it's really worth a watch. Also the opening is super good. Next one is Apothecary Diaries. I haven't finished it, but I've gone pretty far and I really love it so far. I love the main character Mao Mao, I love her character, I love the way she tackles all the mysteries that come her way. I love how she deduces things as well. It's stuff that I've never thought about before, and the author, I think, they've crafted the story in a way that's really plays into her intelligence. And she's one of my favorite female leads, to be honest. I also really like Frieren. Again, I haven't finished it, but I've gone pretty far. I've only got like 2 episodes left. And I just love how slow it is and how it tells the story in a really heartfelt kind of way. Honestly, the kind of anime that Frieren isn't my usual kind of anime, but it really took me by surprise and I really enjoy it. And it just takes you back in time and it ties it into the present moment perfectly. It's just such a good anime. I really appreciate it and I really do recommend it. This next anime has a really special place in my heart. It's called Haikyuu. And I remember not having high expectations when I first watched it years ago because I was not into sports anime whatsoever, and I think this is still the only sports anime I've ever really enjoyed. But honestly, it completely took me by surprise. It's really funny, it's exciting, it's so lovable. The characters are so lovable, and it just hit me like a truck basically. I started watching the first episode and I was like, okay, I'll give this a shot, and then it completely hooked me in and I binged the whole thing. And I know they came out with a movie recently and I haven't watched it, but I will because I love this anime. Honestly, my favorite Haikyuu characters are Tsukishima because his bitter attitude is it's so funny. It made me laugh so much the first time I watched it. He's just such a mood. I love him so much. And Tendo from Shiratorizawa, just because his attitude is also really, really fun, and I just love him. He's such a vibe. He's himself, and I really appreciate that, if you get what I mean. He's also has a really fun character design, I think. I love the red hair, and yeah, I love his mood. I love his attitude. He brings so much fun energy. That being said, I think most of the cast is really, really lovable as well. Suga especially, I also really like him. He's just really nice. But yeah, those two are my main favorites. And as a little bonus, currently I'm watching MDZS, or oh gosh, I'm gonna butcher the name and I'm really sorry. Modazushu, and I'm on season 2. It's really good so far. I really love this kind of setting, this wuxia kind of setting. It's one of my favorites, even though I haven't watched a lot of media for it. I mainly read it on my manhwa or donghwa, those kind of manhwa or manhwa, right? I'm sorry, I get so confused with the names because I'm just reading so much stuff as well. I just love this setting, so it really panders to my interests. And I really love the dynamic between Wei Wuxian and Lan Zhan. They're just so lovable together, and like I said, I'm on season 2, so the story has really kicked up a notch. Alright, second last question. If the apocalypse were to happen, what would be your essentials to survive it? Honestly, I'd pack a copious amount of dried meat just because it's lasts long, it's nutrient, it keeps you going, keeps your muscles all good because, you know, the protein. A bicycle to travel around with a pump in my backpack as well, just in case something goes wrong. I did consider an extra tire, but that might slow me down or someone might nick it, so obviously running shoes so I can run comfortably and ride the bike comfortably. And this I also thought about a lot. Mildly salted warm water to replace my electrolytes after cycling for my life. Just to help with all of the physical exertion I assume I'm going to be doing. Also, in terms of a weapon, I'd probably honestly bust into the nearest martial arts shop or something and honestly steal a straight sword in the sheath, because they're actually quite light, and given my, I guess, bodily constitution, if I learn how to use it, I think I could use it well. So yeah, that's my weapon of choice of defense. I considered a baseball bat as well, but my swing is horrendous, so something like a straight sword might actually be my solution, or maybe even something like a pipe, but still the same issue. My swing is kind of, it's not it. Okay, last question, and I've saved the best for last. This is a really sort of deep question. It is, in life, do you think having someone to share life's moments with you is essential, or is it just a bonus that you can live without? Now, I gave this a little bit of thought, and I'd like to say yes, but I think it definitely depends on the person, because everyone has different needs and a different outlook on how they view others and themselves as well. I think it would be true for most people, but not so much for a very, very select few. But I also think even for that very, very select few, they'd still have, if not a person, then maybe a companion like an animal or a pet, or something that they associate companionship with. Just because humans are very sort of social creatures, and even if you're the least social on that spectrum, I think, at least in my opinion, we all have that sort of feeling that we'd like to share our moments with others. I think sharing is also really important. You know, like, I don't know about anyone else, but whenever something good happens, when I do something I like, whenever I eat something good, I like to share that with other people. I like to hear that from other people as well. Sort of sharing all these moments of your lives together is how you connect. And I think that's really valuable. So, like I said, we're all social creatures by nature, and I think regardless of your outlook on life, having someone there for you is always nice. Now, that got really deep, but I spoke a lot, and that was the end of the questions. So thank you so much for asking me, and thank you very, very much again for 1,000 subscribers. I'll keep working hard, like I said, and honestly, I really enjoyed doing this Q&A. I had a lot written down for it, and I'm gonna try and shorten this down. So this is before I'm editing. This is just me speaking now, but I might add in at the end if I manage to shorten it down or not. But like I said, I really enjoyed making this. I really enjoyed hearing your questions. I hope that in the future I'll probably make more of this. Yeah, every time I reach a certain milestone, I think I'll make another Q&A. I'm curious if any of these questions will change, if some of them will stay the same. If some of them will stay the same, then I'll probably have something up on one of my socials that lets you know the answer to those questions already, because obviously I don't want to keep repeating the same video, unless my opinions have changed. But that depends. But yeah, again, thank you so much for watching, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for asking those questions. I hope this lets you know a little bit more about me, lets you know that I'm also a human that likes anime and video games and whatnot and whatever. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.